Showdown you've been waiting for. Two disappointing seasons so far for Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. Who gets right? They got to have them. We're going to go through everything today. The Showdown predictions, key matchups, everything you need for this ball game today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, friends, neighbors, Chiefs Kingdom around the world. Nice to see you. We are brought to you today by DoorDash. You can get in there right now. A few minutes, you can place your order, have it on your way, get your favorite local meal, and anywhere that you want, whether it's Joe's in Kansas City, if it's, I have a perversion there for Jack Stack Martin City, so just want to put that out there. It should be here before the show is over. And a big thank you to DoorDash for lunch today. Place your order today. Use the promo code LOCKED23. Stay tuned for more in the episode about how you can hear more from our friends over at DoorDash. Check them out. They're giving you everything you need to feel satiated during a ball game or just this evening as we are live on Locked On Chiefs, part of Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team for free every day, everywhere, all the time on every platform, starting with YouTube, where you can like, sub, and hit the bell. And you can get over on Spotify and Apple and get subscribed over there. We are free on everywhere that you can find a podcast. You're going to follow. Welcome to the show. We have a lot to go over in running down what is maybe the most critical game that we had circled early in the season. Then we kind of went away from it. And now we're back to circling this bad boy, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting. You can find us at Rogue APC over there for all your draft and team building knowledge. Then NFL33.com as well. You can find that. And RGR Football. Join us on the text line at 816-357-8781 for more. Here's my partner, Chris Clark of Chiefs Corner. You can get all the information that he puts out every week on the key stats, third down rankings this year, all the capology, and everything you need to take away and get ready for this ball game because there's a lot to it. Now, injuries are probably the biggest concern, and we're going to start right off the bat. Later, we'll get to the predictions, the key matchups, and the goals that they have to accomplish in order to get a win. But right now, a lot of question marks about who's where in Kansas City. A lot of guys not practicing. But the biggest question comes down to, after what the Chiefs did in Green Bay on a night that they were not performing to their key, what they did do is run the ball well. Isaiah Pacheco may not be available for this game. What does that make this offense look like in what's been a crutch for, I think, this version of the Chiefs offense?
I think it's going to be scary for the Chiefs offense going into this game without Pacheco. If he's not able to go and he's not able to play, that's a huge loss for them. And it's not just in the running game. It's in the passing game, too. He's been pretty good as a pass catcher out of the backfield. He's been doing a lot better when it comes to protections. It does look like they'll get Jerick McKinnon back. He did practice in full on Thursday. So I would expect that he's back this week. But he can't take the ball 20 times a game. That's not what you want him for. So the guy that you'd be probably putting in there is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And obviously – he can play, but he hasn't been successful anything close to what Pacheco can do. And I don't think you can run the same running plays with Clyde that you would run with Pacheco. So that's going to cause some issues as well. And that doesn't even get into the conversation of probably having a new left tackle this week.
Mm-hmm. Although there are two things about that scenario that I actually like. We'll get to those in a second. But Isaiah Pacheco did not practice on Wednesday. We don't think that he's going to be available for this game, but stranger things have happened. We'll see. It is a shoulder contusion for those of you that are wondering exactly what's keeping him out. And that is the fact that this is a guy who had shoulder surgery last year, and you want to protect him a little bit, particularly in this area. Now, I think it was the opposite shoulder. I don't have that 100% down, but either way, if they're not going to have him, like you said, Clyde doesn't run the same way Isaiah does. But the good thing is, in recent games, they've been running a little bit more power, meaning pulling linemen, not just the zone where you have to make a read, squeeze through a hole, or maybe make a cutback. This is a designated follow those blockers a little bit more, which is exactly what Clyde did very, very well at LSU. It is more towards his style of what we've seen lately. And I would expect that if Isaiah Pacheco is not ready to go, that they're going to double down on that, because I felt like they got off the ball better against Green Bay, and I think it's something they have to continue to emphasize in order to bring that balance and kind of protect what's going on in the passing game until that starts to really click. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, and I would also say that it's also pretty amazing that it's a shoulder contusion and not, a broken back or something for Pacheco,
Yeah.
considering how he got bent against the Packers. But you also make a great point when you start looking at what Clyde could do in this game. I mean, that's possible that he's going to have a good game in that sense. But you get back to the left tackle, and I want to talk about that for a second because the big thing that is going to be key for him, I think, is establishing the run. That's where he shines the most. He is. I'm not going to call him a mauler per se, but he's more a mauler than he is finesse. So I do think that that's something that will help him get established if they can run the ball early.
And to that point, I agree with you. I think he definitely ran block. His run blocking last week was better than his pass block. He did improve throughout that game. If you guys want to see a breakdown, we have the film over on RGR that we broke down. But I will say this, in watching it live, his kick step in particular, and we are talking about Wanya Morris, folks, if you haven't put that together. I should have said his name. I felt like his kick step was quickened from that first drive. He did give up a sack. PFF's going to put it on Patrick, whatever, I don't care. The guy over his face beat him around and got a sack, so I'm putting that on him. But I thought that he did better as the game went on until about the late fourth quarter, where I think he just kind of ran out of juice. The guy hasn't had that many snaps. I feel like Wanya Morris is going to be in a position to make improvement on last week. So I think getting him started in the run game, like you said, is a very, very good proposition. I think it sets him up for success. And hopefully, given everything that he's going to see, he'll be ready in his pass set. He's going to get a lot more reps this week. We're going to talk about him coming up in the keys and matchups that we're going to get to here in just a bit. But first, we got to give you an update on some of our pals and what they're doing.
And I want to tell you about our friends over at DoorDash. You see this bag right here? This is my dinner. This is what I'm waiting to eat after this show is over. Really looking forward to that. As Ryan said earlier, you can look at places like Joe in Kansas City for a great place to eat. And you can use DoorDash. They do a phenomenal job of bringing food directly to your door. You can get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. When you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCKED23, subject to change, terms to apply. And again, you can do that for any type of game. Are you watching a basketball game tonight? Did the game go to timeout? Time to order in with DoorDash. Is it halftime? Lots of different times you can order food and get ready. And especially this coming game on Sunday where they play at 3:30, maybe you're wanting to go and order some food late in the fourth quarter to be ready right after the game is over. Wings, barbecue, soda. You can even get groceries delivered to your door at DoorDash. 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCK23. Subject to change, terms do apply. Don't forget to use the code LOCK23 for 50% off up to a $10 value on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and spend $15 or more. Subject to change, terms apply.
What I want to apply to is what that matchup is going to be that is so key. We started there talking about Wanya Morris in his first start. Well, my major matchup, and this is going to be true throughout the night, I can't really narrow it down to just Wanya Morris, although he would be probably at the top of the list just because of first start. This is a formidable front. So I'm going to put it just as the O-line group and take the cop out because they're going to see what is, according to Joe Marino, and if you guys missed my conversation with Joe this week, go back and check that out from the Thursday crossover. There are so many pass rushers on this team that they just continue to be able to rotate through. And if I just look at last week, you see, I want to say 7 guys with pressures, Greg Russo and Ed Oliver being 2 of them. You're not going to necessarily get Ed Oliver out on Wanya Morris, so he's going to attack the interior 3 that Joe was very kind in recognizing as an elite trio of interior offensive linemen. But even without Von Miller, who's got his own troubles to worry about, a lot of trouble going on there in Buffalo right now. Whether it's Teron Johnson coming off the nickel blitz like we've seen Trent McDuffie do, Epineza, Oliver, Joseph, Leonard Floyd, Greg Russo, lots and lots of pass rushers can come at you. They're going to continue to keep them fresh. They're going to continue to move them around and try to get not just a one-on-one matchups. They're going to run some stunts. They're going to be able to take every advantage of what they think Patrick is going to do. I think this is a game that it's the offensive line's game to lose, and they have to withstand that onslaught of pass rushers.
Interestingly enough, I was wondering because people have been saying that Von Miller's been having a down season so far this year. He has 8 pressures total, I believe, on 8 games.
Mm-hmm.
That is something I would not have expected. So definitely something to watch there. And I do think that when you look at the pass rush, that's definitely going to be something you have to worry about when it comes to Buffalo. They're going to want to get after Patrick. But my question is what are they going to do on defense? How are they going to slow down this Chiefs offense, who is slowing themselves down at times as well? So, but how are they going to play defense? Are they going to go zone? Are they going to go man? And how do the Chiefs counter? How are the Chiefs going to get into this game, and how are they going to attack with their wide receivers and the tight ends, and what are they going to do in that regard? I do think that's going to be something to watch. Now, when you flip it over to the other side of the ball, though, it's always going to be Chris Jones versus whoever he's going up against. And I'll take the cop out on the other side. I'll say it's the Chiefs defensive line versus the Bills offensive line, because when you look at a guy like Josh Allen, he has made a lot of mistakes this year. And if you can force him to throw the ball before he is ready to, that is not going to be a good position for them to be in. And I think that the Chiefs can take advantage. And I do think that this is the game that you get Nick Bolton back, which does change things in the running game, and it changes things in the passing game a little bit. We don't expect, at least right now, it does not look like Drew Tranquill is going to be a guy that's probably going to be available. The key on that, and something to watch if you're looking at the injury report tomorrow, is did Drew Tranquill practice at all? Did he become a limited participant? If he becomes a limited participant, then it's possible he plays Sunday because he would be able to clear the concussion protocol. But if he can't do any football activities during practice on Friday, then he will not be able to play on Sunday, from my understanding of the rules. Obviously, Brian Cook is out. We've already talked about Donovan Smith more than likely being out. And again, we don't know about Pacheco, but that could really have a different and a change in the offense. And that might be something that Kansas City maybe needs to look at as well.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. My next key matchup is going to flip back over, and it parallels off of yours. But for me, when I take a look at, yes, the Bills offensive line as a whole has a lot to contend with. But for me, this is a story about George Karlaftis. The worst performance of last week's ball game for the Bills was Spencer Brown at the right tackle spot. George is going to see him all day, very often. Last week it was 4 hurries and a sack given up by Brown. Now, George has been a little bit quiet lately, but he's been very, very steady through the season. And when Chris Jones is drawing attention and Charles Omenihu was getting some things done on the other side, it's going to come down to that matchup. You're going to have some nickel blitzes coming off that edge, and I think that is going to cause some hesitation for the left tackle. I don't think they're going to want to leave Cook in to kind of chip away at him. I think they're going to want to get him out in patterns. So on the pass block, I think it's George Karlaftis that likely has the best matchup to try to get to Josh Allen. So it's about, I think, rushing with contain, making sure that you are pushing that offensive lineman back into Josh's lap and not really trying to go around him and leave a lane for Allen to escape. Allen went 9 for 81 yards last week. So it is very much a thoughtful pass rush they have to have this week.
Yeah, and I will say this. I agree with you. I think that Spencer Brown is going to have his hands full. But the other thing I would say is don't be shocked if Chris Jones ends up on him for 4, 5, 6 snaps during the game as well, because they've been putting Jones out at defensive end. And I really am curious to see how Spags attacks Allen, because he's played him enough. And he's got to have a pretty good idea of what his defense can do at this point. You talk about the matchup with Karlaftis. I think the interesting matchup is going to be what does L'Jarius Sneed do against Stephon Diggs this week? Because when you start looking, all I know I figure he's going to be following him. But that's the question: is what kind of game is Stephon Diggs going to have? I can't remember every single game that they played this season off the top of my head, but L'Jarius Sneed, I'm not going to say he's shut down everybody, but he has slowed down all the wide receivers he's faced. And it may not be, the entire game that he's able to slow them down. Like a great example would be Devontae Adams had a pretty good first half, but what did Sneed do in the second half? I mean, you change things and you get things done. So I'm curious to see what they do with Stephon Diggs. I'm sure that L'Jarius Sneed is going to be trailing him and following him. And the other thing, and I know we've talked about this, and I know you don't like it near as much, I expect a penalty or two early on Sneed. I expect him to set the tone. I expect him to get in Diggs' face and go after him.
Against Diggs, I'm perfectly fine with that because I think that goes a long way. You have to show that you're there to compete. And I have no problem with that this week. I will say that I hope that that's the way that it goes down, that he does travel, because I think it sets up for what has been really a carousel of who is going to perform week in, week out for the Bills receiving core. You have McDuffie, who's likely going to see Khalil Shakir all day long. Shakir's a guy that I liked coming out. He's had a couple of up games. It's been very much whack-a-mole for which receiver is going to stand out for the Bills week to week. And I feel good about that matchup with McDuffie on him. Shakir has a little bit of advantage in the short area quickness, his ability to change direction, but we've seen McDuffie play very, very well and play with his recovery speed that is his asset. I'm comfortable there. The question then becomes, what can Gabe Davis do against Joshua Williams, who played very subpar, in my opinion, last week, or Jalen Watson, who didn't play much better? That's going to be, I think, the key. And knowing that you have, yes, veteran, but not quite the speed help over the top with Mike Edwards playing in for Brian Cook.
The speed issue could possibly be a huge issue going into this game. With Cook not being in there, people, I don't think, give enough credit to the speed that he's able to play on the back end and how many things I think he has shut down or has made QBs think twice about throwing just because of the speed that he does have on the back end. Edwards doesn't have that. He's a great safety as well, but he doesn't have the same speed as Cook. So I do think that could be a key going into this game. You look at other things in this game and how it's going to play out. You talk about Gabe Davis. I can tell you he's been up and down all season, and the reason I know that the most is because he's been on my fantasy team. It's been hit or miss. You play him one week, you do well, and then you play him the next week and you get nothing, and then you take him out and sit him on your bench and he does well, and you're like, okay, one of those guys. So it's really hit or miss whether or not he's going to have a good week. What I will say going into this game, and something we really haven't talked too much about, is Mahomes coming off a loss, I believe, is 16-3. He doesn't lose very much when he's coming off a loss. So that's going to be something to watch going into this game.
We're going to keep that in mind. Now, what are the goals? What do they have to do to get done? And what do we see happening? Our predictions, as well as the key things to watch coming up after this, a message from our friends where you can get in the action from everybody here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you want to get in the action, the best way to do it, the easiest way to do it, and the most fun way to do it is PrizePicks. It's the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It's easy, exciting, and very simple to play. All you have to do is choose a line. They're going to give you a number. Is it going to go more or less for a given player? You put 2 to 6 of those entries together, and you have a winning formula. It makes life simple, and you can even get in on basketball, although I know we're here just very specifically for this Chiefs matchup. You can get in the action now. I think Patrick Mahomes does break that 275-yard barrier, and I do think that we see Travis Kelce hit the epic 100-yard mark as well. They'll even give you a reboot so that you have to stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. That always comes in handy because that can ruin your day real quick. For football and basketball games, if you have a receiver who exits the game in the first half and doesn't return, your player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy platform to give that injury insurance policy. Go check them out. All you have to do that is go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use our code LockedOnNFL. That's going to give you a first deposit match up to $100. So if you go sign up with our code at Locked On NFL and use that code Locked On NFL, you put $100 in, they're going to give you an extra $100 for you to get into the action. So make sure you go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use that code Locked On NFL. It's the best way to get in the action. It's daily fantasy sports made easy. It's PrizePicks.
Really quick, before we jump in to our predictions and any keys that we want to throw out there, this is a great question, and I just want to answer as much as I can real quick. Is Dawson Knox going to be back? The answer is he has been brought back from IR. He is practicing. We do not know, and my guess would be if he is back, they're not going to activate him until Saturday. Generally speaking, that's what teams do if they're trying to bring somebody back for the week. I would expect that's what Kansas City is going to do with Nick Bolton. The question with Nick Bolton is who is going to go down. My guess is it's going to be Brian Cook. That's why you haven't seen him on IR yet, and they've had to be reporting about him in practice so far this week.
I agree. Kincaid has been playing well, and to follow on what we were just talking about in the last segment about Brian Cook being replaced. Well, the linebacker situation is key to this ballgame as well. If you missed my conversation with Joe Marino yesterday, make sure you go back and check that out, the crossover, because we talked specifically about what the Bills want to do, and that is attack the middle of the field through the linebackers and the safeties and try to take advantage of that. Now, Khalil Shakir can do some of that, right? He's going to line up in the slot a lot.
And the one thing that's interesting about that is if you go back and watch a Packers game, and Derek pointed this out, and I don't know if it was the second quarter or late in the first quarter, but the Green Bay Packers were throwing the ball, and they weren't attacking the corners. They were going after the safeties and the linebackers. So that's definitely something that's that the Packers took advantage of. So that's definitely something to watch on Sunday.
And in this situation, with both your high safety as well as your, let's be real, probably best coverage linebacker off the field, if Drew Tranquill is unable to go, that's prime area. And it's not just Shakir who will line up at the slot, but it is primarily Dalton Kincaid. And so what I need to do, what they need in order to get a win, is maybe the best coverage game of Willie Gay's career in getting physical with Kincaid early in the route and being able to understand how they're trying to attack him. There's going to be catches made against Willie Gay, but Willie is the best option without Drew Tranquill on the field to try to use linebackers in coverage against the tight ends in particular. And I think that's going to come down to what happens for Kincaid.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be something to watch. Kincaid's been fantastic for him. Right now, if I was to guess, I would say Knox. I'm guessing no, he's not going to play, but just based on the way Kansas City has done things, but obviously Buffalo's a different team. Maybe we'll see his injury. If he's able to play, that's going to be something that's going to be difficult for Kansas City to defend, having both those guys being able to be on the field.
Yeah. The other thing that I think absolutely has to happen in order for this ballgame to be a victory for the Kansas City Chiefs is that Rashee Rice has to be the guy. It has to be, whether it's those little dump offs, that the screens, whatever you want to use, he's got to be the guy that is the duo to Travis Kelce. I think Kelce is going to break 100 because I think he does have the advantage there in what he's trying to do. But you have to have that secondary punch, and it's got to come in the form of Rashee Rice. If they do that, I think they move the ball in the air enough to take the pressure off of either Pacheco if he's in and he's hurt, or Clyde if he's filling in.
Yeah. Well, and it's going to be curious to me to see, how does Kansas City come out and try to attack the Bills? The Bills' defense has not been great since they lost some players early on. The pass rush can get after you at times for sure, but their corners aren't great ever since they lost their number one corner. And so we'll see how Kansas City decides to go at Buffalo's defense. But I'm also curious, do they go back to more 12 personnel? They started the season playing a lot of 12 and 13. They haven't done it near as much lately, and I think that that's a mistake. I do think that they should be getting Noah Gray involved with Travis Kelce on the field. And I know this probably isn't going to be popular, but I also think they need to be putting Noah Gray on the field at times and taking Travis Kelce off. I think Andy Reid needs to tell Kelce, we understand you want to be on the field for Patrick, but we need you to be healthy for the playoffs. You need to take some snaps off.
Yeah, that may be needed. And I do agree with you that I think Gray deserves to be fed a little bit more. They clearly are not going to use Kadarius Toney in any way that we think that they should. So I'm throwing that out the window. So feed Rashee, Trav and Gray. Maybe you get something else done. If you get a surprise play, I was just going to get to him. If you get a surprise play from one of the guys that are the extras that line up in the slots, whether it's Sky Moore or whether it's Richie James, or if Washington gets to play, whoever that is, I think that's all bonus. And hopefully, again, if you are feeding Rice and you're feeding Kels, you're going to have opportunities to get a third receiver involved that maybe has a better advantage in the matchup or has the ability to get loose and get some yak.
Yeah, and that's what you have to hope for. And I hope that they get Richie James involved in this just to see if he actually can give them something, because what did they give him, 9 snaps last time? I don't think that's possible. You can do that again this week.
Agreed. And I do think because of his veteran experience and his ability to do the things the little things that we're not seeing the other receivers do, I think that he's going to be a guy that down this stretch is going to be able to contribute and maybe help push the Chiefs to a victory. So that said, how do you see this going down? What is your prediction?
If this game was 3 weeks ago, I think that I'd feel a lot better about Kansas City winning it. And I say that because Buffalo has looked better since they replaced their offensive coordinator. Not going to say that they look great. Not going to say that they're not beatable, but I do think that they've looked better. And I think Allen is getting closer back to where he was to start the season. And if he continues to play that well, that could be a problem. Kansas City doesn't usually play Buffalo very well in the regular season. That's also part of another reality that ends up being the case. I'm still going Kansas City to win this game. I don't think Buffalo is going to win, mainly because, quite honestly, they don't have a guy like Dillon on their team. I really do think that was one of the biggest reasons that the Chiefs lost to the Packers, was because Dillon was able to move the pile. He was enough power to be able to move the pile. Maybe they want to try to do that with Josh Allen, but do you really want to risk him, that much up the middle? I don't think you want to go that direction. So we'll see. But I'm still going Kansas City. I think I'm probably saying 24-21.
Okay. We're pretty close. I see this as two quarterbacks that are frustrated and are not getting the most out of what they're trying to do, whether it's the personnel around them or their personal decision-making. Something's got to give. I don't think this is going to be as dramatic as the 13-second game, but I do think that Reaper Mahomes shows back up. He may have to come from behind, in fact, but I do think when push comes to shove, this team is in better position to perform on both sides of the ball than I feel that the Buffalo Bills are. Now, are they going to get chunk plays? I think so. It might even be Cook, just so everybody's paying attention. He does have that ability. But I think depending on the personnel that's available, I do think that the Chiefs have that ability to come back. And we've seen decision-making leave Patrick Mahomes time to make epic comebacks in this series before. In the end, I see something very similar happening, but I think they have to come from behind. I think the Chiefs win 24-23, probably in the last 20 seconds. Let us know what you think. Put your predictions down in the comments below. We would love to see them, especially if you think that we are absolutely out there on it. Do you think this is a blowout for some reason? I'd love to hear somebody who disagrees with us. But if you'd like more inside information, make sure you sign up over at our text line at 816-357-8781. And you make sure to subscribe right here. Now, we also have a brand new thing that we're going to send you over to here after this show. Make sure you like and subscribe over there. That is the Locked On Sports Today. You're going to have a feed of 24/7 where you get all kinds of news around the sports world, particularly in the NFL and even some of us. So I hope that you'll check that out as well. Lots coming for you here today. We will be live post-game, as we always are. Matt Derrick will join us, and we will have the info that you need to make sense of whatever goes down. I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully it ends with a more smiley face than I had last week. So we thank you for your time and your patience. Chris, anything I forgot?
No, I think you're good. I'm really looking forward to this game, and I think that Kansas City has a lot to play for in this week that they kind of let go last week, but the Bills have even more to play for. I mean, they're fighting for any chance at the playoffs, so this is going to be a game that I really do feel is a must-win for both teams.
I completely agree. If you want to start looking at the draft, you can do that, but this is a big game. So spend your weekend accordingly. I appreciate you. Draft information is at NFL33.com. We will be right here post-game. Enjoy your weekend, and we will see you live after Bills Chiefs.